Get our meeting underway. Good evening. This is Commissioner Melissa Bynum, At-Large District 1, chairing Public Works and Safety Standing Committee for November 15, 2021. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that due to COVID, some committee members, staff, and public are attending remotely by Zoom, as well as some on site. All participants joining by phone, please mute your phone when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak, so that the public that's observing knows who's speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants. It's also current guidance from our Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those will be included in the record of the meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public contact by comment by contacting the clerk's office by 5 p.m. the Thursday prior to our meetings. The public also will have an opportunity to provide brief comments either by phone or Zoom or from the lobby of our municipal office building. I will now call the meeting of Public Works and Safety Standing Committee to order and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Roll call, Groneman. Groneman.
Present.
Philbrook.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Markley.
Here.
Bynum.
Here. We do not have any revisions on tonight's agenda, and our first order of business is minutes from September 27. Is there a motion for approval?
Markley, move to approve.
Need a second, please.
Second. Kane, second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call on the minutes, please.
Roll call, Groneman.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. Thank you. Our minutes are approved, and that takes us to the items on our committee agenda. There are 5 items this evening. The first one is a resolution that authorizes a cooperative agreement between Bonner Springs, Edwardsville, and the Unified Government for a Public Safety Communications Center. We have Casey Meyer from legal here. Casey, would you take us through this item, please?
Sure. This is Casey Meyer from the legal department, and let's see. Sorry. All right, are you able to see that?
Not yet. Are you having a Monday?
I am having a Monday.
Sorry.
Well, it is a one PowerPoint slide, and I think it might be more efficient if I just explain it.
Sure.
This is basically just a recitation of what we have already been doing with Bonner Springs and Edwardsville for several years. The Unified Government is the public safety answering point for Wyandotte County. And what that means is we provide the communication and emergency dispatch services to Edwardsville, Bonner Springs, and Kansas City, Kansas. And we provide the staffing for that center, which, as you probably know, are our police department employees and fire department employees. So all this is doing is putting in writing what we have been doing already, and also establishing a 911 advisory committee in which members from both Kansas City, Kansas Fire and Police, as well as Edwardsville Fire and Police and Bonner Fire and Police, and administrators from each of those jurisdictions will meet at least twice a year to discuss any improvements that may be able to be made with our communication center. So that's all it is. The term is through December of 2030. All parties have the ability to terminate the agreement. And as far as fees or payments go, we don't get reimbursed by any of the city in providing these services. There are 911 fees that are collected via state statute, and then those are spent on the services provided to Bonner Springs and Edwardsville. So we are just requesting your approval for our ability for Mr. Bach to sign the agreement on behalf of the unified government.
Thank you, Casey. You did an excellent job explaining that, and it was in our packet. And it looks to me like the piece that might be new or additional to what we've been doing is the committee. Would
That's
you say
correct.
that's correct? Okay.
Yes, that's true.
All right. Questions from the committee? Were there any comments from the public on the item?
No comments were received.
Thank you. Do you see any hands up from the public watching for a comment?
There are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion on the item?
Move to approve, Markley.
Kane, second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Roll call on this item, please.
Roll call, Groneman,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. Thank you very much. That
Thank
item passes. The second item is a resolution declaring the Armordale Industrial District Pump Station Project a necessary improvement project. And this is authorizing the land survey. James Bain is also from our legal department and will explain this item to us. Mr. Bain.
Thank you, Commissioner Bynum, and good evening, commissioners. As you explained, this resolution is in regards to the rehabilitation of the AID pump station. It does two things: declares the project necessary and valid, and authorizes the survey of the land to get the legal description for what the unified government may take in an eminent domain action that could be filed down the road after an attempt to acquire the necessary land. Joe Barnes, I believe, is on from Water Pollution Control, and I'm going to share the map from my computer and let Joe talk you all through the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Can you all see the map?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, Joe, go ahead.
All right. Can everybody hear me? Joe Barnes, Project Manager, Water Pollution Control.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. AID pump station is our largest pump station that feeds the Call Point wastewater treatment plant. And we've had some recent failures in the past 12 months, substantial $100,000 worth of damages due to deteriorated pipes at the station. We're currently in design to rehabilitate the station. And because of the size of the pump station and the limited land that we have surrounding the pump station, we may need to relocate some electrical equipment outside of the pump station. And yeah, this is just setting us up so we can survey and see where we could put the structure. With that, I'm open to questions.
This is Commissioner Bynum. On your map where you have the pump station identified. It sits within a triangle of property, if you will, on the southern end being the Central Avenue Bridge. Is that all already, the entire triangle I'm referencing, is that all unified government owned already, or do we contemplate any need for offering a payment for private property on this one?
Yeah, I think there's two property owners down there, Casey Southern and 402 Central Avenue LLC, something like that. And where we would be expanding, I guess, our project site would just most likely be to the west to stay within that red box. I don't anticipate any additional land needing to be purchased outside of that red box. You know, we've evaluated the sewers in the area and may need to do sewer rehabs on the existing collection system, but no further expansion.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments from our committee members? And were there comments received from the public?
No comments were received.
And are there any hands raised to speak?
No hands are raised.
Thank you very much. If there is no further discussion needed, a motion, please.
Commissioner Mike Kane,
Philbrook.
move for approval.
Commissioner Philbrook, second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Groneman,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. Thank you very much, sir. The third present item is a presentation on open burning. So this is solicitation of our feedback on proposals to modify current ordinances, if I'm not mistaken, on how we handle open burning requests. John Khalil is here, and sir, I will turn it over to you. I believe you have a presentation for us.
I do. Thank you, Commissioner Bynum. Give me one moment. Alrighty. Can everybody see that?
Not yet.
Okay. What am I doing here?
Before we get started, this is Helen House, this County Administrator. Could ask that Jennifer Stewart and Julianne Van Loo be moved over from attendees and to presenter for this item. They're in the meeting as well.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Can you see that now? Can everybody see that now?
Yes.
Alrighty. So this issue was previously before the committee on July 26th. And this is, or I'm here today to discuss and solicit some feedback on some proposed changes that came out of the discussion from that meeting. The issue at the ordinance at issue here is Unified Government Code section 3-17HA, which provides for the open burning of non-residential waste or extraordinary organic yard waste. This ordinance requires that if you are burning those types of waste, the use of an air curtain open pit destructor, which is an air curtain destructor is an air quality control, air pollutant mitigation device. So the staff is proposing the following changes to provide greater clarity to both the public and our staff as to what options are available. The next time we have a large storm in the area that causes an uptick in the amount of organic yard waste that we have to deal with. So our first proposed modification would be to amend section 3-3 to include a definition of extraordinary yard waste or extraordinary organic yard waste. This This definition would be organic yard waste that cannot be burned within the hours of 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. over 3 consecutive days while being contained to a 10 by 10 foot area, which would be determined by the chief of the fire prevention division or their designee. This definition is the definition that we are currently using. It's just not anywhere in the code. So by adding this definition to the code, it would improve transparency and objectivity within the burn permitting process. Our second proposed modification would be to increase the discretion of the director. This would give the director of air quality control or the air quality division the discretion to determine what types of wastes are in the public interest to burn, and if and what air quality precautions are needed when burning. The third modification would update the definition of our air curtain, of an air curtain in the code to include emission control on other non-residential waste or extraordinary organic yard waste. These modifications would both give the director of the air quality division more discretion to determine when air curtain destructors are required. The fourth proposed modification would create an appeals process for folks who have their burn permit denied. This would be an appeal to the director of air quality, the chief of the fire prevention division, and the county administrator's office, or a panel of the three of them, and they would have 30 days to file such an appeal. The fifth proposed modification would update the definition of organic yard waste in the code to include trees felled by storm damage on properties zoned either residential or agricultural. I believe at the moment it's just residential properties. And it doesn't include trees felled by storm damage. And then the sixth proposed modification would be including extraordinary organic yard waste with these, when applying for a permit to burn extraordinary organic yard waste. This additional information would be required to obtain a permit with the fire prevention division. So are there any questions or comments about these provisions or modifications?
Yes. The,
Commissioner Kane, is that you?
yes, yes.
Go ahead.
And first of all, I appreciate what you guys have done. You've done a lot of work on this. You know, this kind of stemmed from an incident from one of my constituents that the situation may have been mishandled or was mishandled, to be honest about it. But no more than these events happen, when we're talking about the curtain and the machine that does that, where the curtain destructor is required, they're at a minimum between $15,000 and $20,000 to get one of those to rent. You know, and no more than these events happen, and it's only happened once in the 16 and a half years that I've been here. So the relatively how often this happens is minimal. And what people don't realize, when you lose a downed tree in an agricultural area, you don't get any insurance for that. So you already lost the trees. You'd be out a multiple amount of monies and an inconvenience. And you've got this all over the place. But now we have a director of air quality, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess somewhere I'd like to massage this a little bit to include any agriculture use be issued a permit by health department and or fire department, and now the director of air quality, without the use of a curtain when the application is made, as long as the quality conditions are acceptable. And the reason I say that is I don't know why we went this big. You know, it was a very simple thing that folks were working on. And if it meets the air quality, if the director of air quality says it's fine, if the health department says it's fine, and the fire department says it's fine, that you keep it in this minimal area, I don't believe that they should be required to have an air curtain. You know, this, like I said, it's only happened once in 16 and a half years. And like it was mishandled. I don't want to have this happen again. But if this happened and you had some agricultural ground and you did that, as long as they followed the health department, fire department, the director of air quality control to say you can do it this day or these days, then I don't think a whatever you call that, let me get back to it. The air curtain destructor is required in my mind. And if they follow those three recommendations from those three different departments, and it's in that box that you guys keep talking about, I don't think that curtain's necessary.
This is
Okay.
Commissioner Bynum. If we could step back, I guess, to that first slide.
So the
The one
This-
with the photograph, go back to the photograph. There
This
we
one?
go. Is that the air curtain apparatus?
yeah, so that's a picture of an air curtain. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you. So I'm just trying to track with what Commissioner Kane is saying and not in a position to have ever done this or needed to do this, but it looks to me like there's a hole in the ground if I'm looking at this properly. What's being burned is in the hole and the destructor equipment is there for purposes of basically containing and or putting out that fire, because the question that I have is organic material of this magnitude set on fire and allowed to burn between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. is going to have to be put out, correct? I mean, it's not going to burn itself out.
So yeah, there would have to be the safety steps taken to ensure that the fire was safely extinguished in that time period if there was enough material present to burn for that long. What the air curtain destructor does is it creates an air curtain over the top of the of that open pit there that keeps all of your potential pollutants from getting out into the wider atmosphere.
Okay,
So it would keep the smoke and anything else that could potentially be burning inside of that pit from getting out. I mean, the real issue is smoke when you're dealing with organic
okay,
waste. And
okay.
what the proposed change here would do, kind of to address Commissioner Kane's point, is currently the statute would require an or the ordinance would require an air curtain destructor. And this would make that an option for the health department when they're making their determination. So if they feel one is needed, they would still have the option to require someone to use one, but not in every case would one be required.
Okay, I appreciate that because it sounds like the modifications then are addressing the original concern and the concern that Commissioner Kane is sharing today, that rather than just requiring it by ordinance, it is allowing for a case-by-case basis, if I am understanding you.
Yes, so it would allow for a case-by-case basis for the air quality control and the fire department to be able to
Okay.
make a decision on whether an air curtain is needed.
Okay, excellent. Well, that is good. Sounds like a response to, I think, the concerns that were in front of us over the summer with the issue at hand at that time. What other questions or comments does this committee have? We are soliciting feedback at this time. And I do not see any other hands raised on the item. So if that is the case, If any other staff members have a comment we need to hear, we shall entertain that now. And if not, sir, we will thank you for bringing this forward. And it is an information only item, so it is not a voting item. And we appreciate your time. And as Commissioner Kane said, we do appreciate the work that you all have done to bring these changes forward. So thank you for that.
Commissioner Bynum, this is Commissioner
Yes.
Markley.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just curious, what is the next step for this item since it's for information only tonight? Taking silence as acquiescence. It sounds like there's support for the language as proposed. Does that mean that it is going to come before us at another standing committee for a vote? Or I'm just curious what the next step is since we're not voting on it tonight.
Thank you. That's a good question.
Commissioner Markley, this is Patrick Waters, Legal Department. Yes, we can take this feedback and we can put this into a final ordinance form and probably bring it back to you next month.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And Patrick.
Hey, Patrick, can we make sure, highlight, they have the option of case by case?
Yes, Commissioner.
All right, thank you.
And just for clarification, Patrick, I believe that our December meeting is going to be held very early in the month due to the holidays. So,
Okay.
you know, if not December, then perhaps January, but nonetheless, thank you all very much. And that will move us to item 4, which is a presentation on the CMIP project scheduled for 2022. And Jeff Fisher is here. Is he?
Yes, I'm here, Commissioner.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I couldn't find you. Jeff, I will turn it over to you. I imagine perhaps you might have other staff here with you also.
That's right, Commissioner.
Okay, go right ahead.
Well, we know this is routine for the UG to make this presentation each fall. And just to highlight the next year's CMIP activities, and typical for us to have several participants, like you said, several presenters. And if someone could make sure Trenton Fogelsong is a presenter as well, that'd be much appreciated. We have Robbie Anderson, our asset manager. We have Troy Shaw, our county engineer. We have Joe Barnes, Water Pollution Control, Trenton Fogelsong with Water Pollution Control, and John Kelly with Buildings and Logistics. If you wouldn't mind, advance the next slide, Robbie. We've talked about this in the past, and in our subcommittees, we've talked about this as well. Just want to make sure we define what CMIP is. It is the Capital Maintenance Improvement Program. I would venture to say every city has a 5-year CMIP or 5-year CIP. And we just want to point out the difference between capital and maintenance. Capital is usually it's a one-time project with a defined start and end date, with a defined amount of money and a defined scope, whereas maintenance, that's reoccurring routine work to keep the infrastructure functional and working at its optimum. And next slide, please. I believe Robbie Anderson is going to take it from here.
Yeah, so good evening, commissioners. What we ask you to help us with in this process is helping us set weights around how we select projects. And we're doing our best to be as data-driven as possible in how we do that. And we've engaged with all of you in that process. It's kind of an exciting time because we just recently wrapped up our presentation on this to the Planning and Zoning Board, and we'll be re-engaging you all with that here to evaluate whether or not those weights have been set correctly. So So one of the most important parts of what you do is approve the budget that makes improvements to our community. So the CMIP is a valuable thing, and we want it to be as objective as possible. So we do our best to have a data-driven process that's systematic and disciplined. It's based on those criteria that we've outlined and you've weighted, and it complements the priority-based budgeting process that's trying to find the best programs and best activities that the UG does for the community. So at its heart, it's data-driven, but it's also human-informed. Part of that human informing is coming from you all. So please keep that on your radar that we'll be reaching out for additional input on this. It's a process that's repeatable and it can easily be updated or modified. So that's the whole purpose behind this, is to take your input and put it into practice in how we schedule out your projects. So very important part of our engagement with you. And now we're gonna go on and to review the 2022 projects and programs. And I'm gonna kick it over to John Kelly.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. Here we have just a couple pictures for the Buildings and Logistics 2022 quick view to kind of show a couple of the projects we're working on. So I'll go ahead and Robbie, move to the next slide, please. So these two particular slides that we have, we talked about the City Hall Stabilization Project, which in 2021, we received $2.5 million. And then for 2022, we're receiving another $2.5 million for a total $5 million total investment. Essentially what this is to do, I think everybody on this call is aware that the City Hall water infiltration has been going on for some time. So this repair will take the City Hall's diaphragm and allow us to have the reutilization of the ground floor to where maybe we will be able to take people and lease facilities out in other parts of the community and bring them back into space that we have here at City Hall that's underused, and will ensure the building to stop having deterioration due to the water infiltration that's been going for some time. And then the other picture below, we have the Pearson Park Fire Station. This particular project is we're working with the fire department currently on with our architect and our CMR to replace two smaller outdated fire stations that are in the Turner area. This will consolidate to one larger fire station that would address immediate needs with room to grow. In 2022, we're receiving another $2.4 million for a total of almost $9 million worth of a total investment for this fire station. We've been having some on-threes with you commissioners explaining kind of where the construction has been looking like since COVID and the kind of the supply chain and the cost due to some of these projects being kind of in an idle situation due to the supply chain. So I just want to make mention that again, we are seeing and hearing a lot of supply chain issues. We just wrapped up a project here behind City Hall at the Health Department. And just for an example, our roofing contractor just literally wrapped up the roofing project to where we were going to start a roofing project across the street at City Hall. And we're being told that just your basic roofing materials are anywhere between 6 to 8 months lead time. So just want to make sure that the commissioners are aware that as we continue to try to get these projects off the ground and get them moving, the supply chain issue and then the cost of some of the getting our hands on these, certain pieces of equipment to get these projects done are starting to see a spike. So we'll keep you guys informed as these projects are moving if we were to need to come back to get your guys' input. But otherwise, these are just a couple examples of a couple projects for 2022 that we're trying to get off the ground and get them going. So next slide, Robbie.
John, before you go to the next slide, we have Commissioner Kane with his hand up.
Getting ready to talk.
Please.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner.
Well, I'm not sure what to say here. It took 5 years to build that fire station out here. I was lied to multiple times. So I hope, and John, you did a good job when you picked up the ball on this, and I really appreciate it. But I hope like hell, it doesn't take 5 years to build another fire station. And I
Commissioner,
know that, I know there's supply problems right now, but it didn't take 5 years. They made sure it took 5 years. And I want to make sure the next one's built in a timely manner.
I agree, Commissioner, and I think our team that we have formed together, that we will ensure that this project moves in the quickest fashion to ensure the durability of the facility. And like I said, if we do run into supply chain issues that would cause the project to be slowed for any reasons, we'll make sure you guys are informed of that. But you're right, there's several different options that we can look at to keep it going. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we build a fire station for 50-year type facility. So, but I agree, we don't want to see 5 years to get this fire station out of the ground.
And there's still bugs to be worked on the new one.
Yes,
Thanks, John.
thank you, Commissioner.
Thank
Any
you,
other
sir.
questions?
I don't see any other if you want to keep moving.
This is Troy Shaw, I'm a county engineer. I'll go over some projects real quick. I think most of us have seen these before, but I want to point out some of these. You can go ahead to the next slide, Robbie, that you'll probably start seeing in construction next year. So start with 7th and Central. That's a project with KDOT as 7th Street's state highway that we're going to do geometric improvements and some access control to improve safety and the function of the intersection. Anticipated start of construction is spring of next year. We've actually bid this one early. We had KDOT do a special bid process for us on this one, where we were able to order the parts early. So we've ordered signal equipment. We still haven't got it in yet. We're hoping we'll get it by spring of next year. So we've kind of, to get back to what John was saying, we've kind of done some extra work to get around that, hopefully. Next one is Hutton and Donahue intersection. This should be a pretty simple one. It's under design right now. It's another signal project. So plan on bidding that project this winter, getting the equipment ordered, and hopefully get that project started. We know there's been backups with the school and Hutton Road, so we've been working with them a little bit too to hopefully improve that. And I think this project will help with that a little bit. Next one, Robbie. Also, just note, like we always do, annual pavement preservation, huge focus on that, and a priority rating system for that. What we've been working on with the different techniques, mill and overlay, microsurface. You'll see some of those UBOS going out for bid this winter, and we will be bidding our 2022 mill and overlay this winter as well. So we'll be ready to get that one started as soon as spring rolls around this year. So we should be working in spring through the summer to get that knocked out. And then Hutton and Leavenworth Road intersection, that's a big safety project where we'll build completely rebuilding the intersection of Hutton and Leavenworth, as well as Leavenworth Road from Hutton down to just to the west of 435. So there'll be quite a bit of work there. You'll probably see utilities start out there. We'll be doing utilities and right away in 22. And then the UG's portion of construction will start in 23. So that'll be a big one. And then one more, Robbie. And then the Safe Routes to School. We're doing about a little over 2 miles of sidewalk in this area. So it's a pretty big project. We bid this one. This is also an assisted KDOT project. We bid this one in the spring of this year. So planning on construction starting right around the end of May after school's out. So hopefully that works out that way, and we're timing it right. So I think that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Troy, it's Melissa Bynum. Rob, could we go back one slide? Thank you. Under annual pavement preservation, if I'm understanding you, what the commission has allocated in our budget for the entire pavement preservation budget is 7.8 million. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, pretty close. I couldn't give you the exact number, but that's a combination of a few different pots of money put together. But yes, that's pretty close. Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. And then if you compare it to Hutton and Leavenworth Road, which on its own is a $7 million project, the reason I point those two things out is just to highlight the cost, frankly. The infrastructure is expensive.
And that's a good, sorry to interrupt, but I was gonna say, that's a very good point. And what you guys have done, and which we appreciate to make it so we can spend more money on preservation, is the budget for Hutton and Leavenworth. We spread it out over 3 different budget years because it's gonna be a big project. So that's really helped us to get a little bit more for pavement preservation each year as well. So we do appreciate that.
And then just a quick question on the Hutton and Leavenworth Road. When you say that we're going to have reconstruction of Leavenworth all the way east to 435, does that include sidewalks in that area?
I haven't got the design yet, but yes, if we're
Okay.
if we're gonna rebuild the road, we will put sidewalks in. And I believe, don't hold me to this, I believe this is part of our trail master plan as well. So one side will probably have a 10-foot trail as well.
Well, and I don't mean to belabor this. I appreciate the information, but I guess one thing I would toss out here for us and the public, frankly, is sometimes it seems like we're building sidewalks to nowhere, but in fact, the more we can lay down sidewalk while we're improving a road, it's there for the next time we come along that area to match some sidewalk up to it. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, that's 100% correct. It's
Okay.
much cheaper for us to build the sidewalk while we're in there doing the work on the road than it would be to come back later. I know it does, like you said, it looks a little odd when there's just sidewalk going to nowhere, but it is built with the intent to connect to it in the future.
Thank you very much. And Commissioner Kane.
Yes. I hate to ask the question. You guys are still planning on putting a roundabout there, right?
That is currently the plan. Like I said, it's under design right now, and we've started reaching out to the fire department to work with them and make sure that whatever we do functions for them. So with the new fire station just to the south there.
And just so you'll know, I still oppose a roundabout. And so does the community.
I'm aware. I appreciate it, and
I
I would be glad to meet with you to discuss. I know we've talked about it before and share the safety benefits of the roundabout with you, but I know there are those out there that feel completely different. So I do appreciate that.
I worked in safety for 21 years. I still disagree with you.
Okay, please continue. Thank you.
Commissioners, this is Joe Barnes, Project Manager, Water Pollution Control. Go over a few of our projects. This slide is just highlighting some of our field staff and our existing facilities call point at the far right. One of our cleaning crews out in the field, and then a television crew out doing inspections on our collection system. Next slide, please, Robbie. A couple of our major projects programs. The first one is the Call Point Biosolids. It's one of our largest capital projects. It's going to put us in a position to control our own destiny and collaborate with the region on taking in high strength fats, oils, and greases. We won't be reliant on Deffenbaugh or a waste receiving station anymore. We can land apply biosolids, and then also part of that project would be to create biogas and potentially have a revenue stream after the project is completed. Our next program is our annual system renewal, and this has been supported by our rate studies and included in the 5-year CMIP. This renewal program will allow us to prioritize projects, rehab projects at our plants, at our pump station, and in the sanitary sewer collection system based on our asset management program. Next slide, Robbie. The next project is part of our consent decree. It was the first priority project, and it's in the Jersey Creek area. Sewer separations. It'll separate the stormwater from the sanitary sewer. It'll reduce volumes of overflows in the system, and it's located right outside of the Big 11 Lake service area. And our last project that we're going to highlight is our AID pump station. Earlier tonight on this agenda, we got the resolution of survey for that. Again, it's one of our largest pump stations. It had some recent failures. It's a huge capital cost to rehabilitate this sanitary sewer pump station, and it sends most of the flow to Call Point wastewater treatment plant. With that, I'm open for questions.
Are there questions on this one? I know we took action on the Big 11 item last month. All right, I guess there's no other comments or questions for you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I failed to mention that Angel Obert, our Parks and Rec director, was also with us tonight, but I think she's up.
Great.
Yep, thanks, Jeff, for that. So Angel Obert, Director of UG Parks and Rec. I'm here to give a brief overview on some of our projects that we're highlighting for 2022 as well. Robbie, you can go to the next slide, please. I do want to reiterate kind of a little bit of what Mr. Kelly was saying. We too are beginning to experience and anticipate to continue to experience some challenge with production and supply chain issues as we move forward towards these projects for 2022. So the first one we'll highlight is ongoing investment and improvements to Davis Hall. So in 2022, we'll be adding a fire suppression system. We want to continue to protect and prevent any damages to this historic hall in our inventory. This year in 2021, we are installing a fire suppression system in the kitchen area, which we are also upgrading to a commercial grade kitchen. So being able to add a fire suppression in 2022 for the whole building will be a lot better service to the community and also protect it and prevent it from hopefully any issues in the future. Another ongoing project and investment from CDBG dollars is the NERSA improvements that we've had over the past several years to the Clifton and City Park area. So in 2022, we will be adding a spray park and playground to the Clifton Park area and also doing some on-site improvements with parking. If any of you are familiar with the spray park and playground combo at Eisenhower, we anticipate this design to be very similar to that concept, which has always been well liked by the community. And, as far as the spray park and playground component has always been a nice feature as well. And then also with those dollars, doing some improvements to City Park North. And those improvements will include repairing the road and also some parking improvements, as well as updating the shelter and also making improvements to the playground. So this investment too is $650,000. Next slide, please.
Angel, we have Commissioner Philbrook with her hand up, please.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
Commissioner.
want to ask you a quick question, Angel. So the new spray park that you're going to put in, it's going to be pretty much as Eisenhower one is, which allows for the nice park benches, and table, and also the sun shading as well.
Yes, we are looking, if budget allows, to mimic the same design concept. So exactly what you're speaking of, that spray park with the playground that kind of flow into one with the nice seating area in between.
Okay, well, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback about that park, of course, but also the fact that sun shading makes a big difference for somebody coming back down with their kiddos. So thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
I'll make note of that too and make sure we can consider that and add it into the design as well, because the sunshades are extremely popular and they're putting out a lot more grant and also awareness around protection too for kids when they're playing in the summer in the heat. So thank you. Next slide, please, Robbie. Another project we'll highlight is our annual program for the improvement of restrooms. As you guys are aware, in 2018, this program was added into our budget from the 2017 master plan findings that identified that park restrooms ranked high on the priority list for the community and also our department. So that has been an annual program for us that we've been doing throughout all of our parks. I do want to note that since 2018, we've actually repaired or touched or replaced 13 restrooms. And 8 of those have been made possible through outside funding such as CARES Act. So this is a $115,000 investment that we will continue in 2022 to implement. And then lastly, I want to highlight the establishment of a new park near the Fire Station 12. And this vicinity is in Hutton Park and Leavenworth Road area. So in early 22, we anticipate to begin the design phase of this park project. We also anticipate that the park will initially feature a parking lot area along with some tables and grills. This is a $250,000 investment.
Angel, we have Commissioner Kane and then Commissioner Philbrook.
Yes,
Angel, do you
Commissioner.
think you'll have that park done this spring?
I would not say that we'd have it done this spring, as we're going to begin the design phase in early 2022.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Philbrook.
Quick question, as I know, and a lot of other people know, all those lovely new bathrooms, some of them were destroyed. Are we going to be doing anything about cameras or anything like that to try to help prevent our property being destroyed? Angel, you know?
That's a great question, and appreciate all the awareness and support that our commissioners have been helping us do around this issue. It's been very challenging, but we have been exploring some possible new options, kind of along the lines of cameras. It's a new product that we're kind of exploring right now, but we're also working really closely with the Sheriff's Department to see what we can do to kind of get some more awareness and some more eyes on these high hit areas and these restrooms that are being hit frequently. But that is high on our priority list, and exploring some options and some solutions that can help us with that.
Yeah, Angel, it's so sad that people pay their taxes and we build stuff for them, and then folks come in and tear things up. That's pretty disgusting. Thanks.
Okay, it's Jeff Fisher. Thank you for pointing out earlier, Commissioner Bynum, how much infrastructure costs. It is, and it's increasing, unfortunately, here recently with inflation, like John Kelly was pointing out earlier, and I think Joe Barnes might have mentioned it too. Cost of construction is a problem right now. We're taking measures in a number of different ways to minimize that impact, which could mean on some projects being delayed. I'm not speaking to the fire station. I don't believe that's going to be delayed, but we do have other projects where we're timing them, best we can, so that we kind of hit the market at the right time. And as we've been working in our subcommittees, which has been a lot of excellent discussion about outcomes and strategies. If you'll go to the next slide, Robbie. That we hope, and we'll be reporting on the status of our infrastructure subcommittees this Thursday. It's been a lot of good work, a lot of good discussions. We are defining outcomes and strategies to help the organization and the community turn the corner. It's going to take a big commitment. We're going to have to adjust values, and that commitment's going to have to hold for 10, 20 years to turn the corner. The wastewater enterprise fund, it brings in the money it needs to do the work. Now, guarantee you some staff would say there needs to be more money, but I think we're managing that very well. And we do have things come up like AID, and we have to reprioritize, but we're committed to the rate schedule that we've presented in the past and doing everything we can to make best use of those dollars. The Stormwater Fund, as we all know, is a different problem. We have taken a good step in the right direction here recently, and we'll be discussing stormwater again this week. And we hope that we can take the next step going forward and make that fund bring in enough the revenues it needs to do the work of the system out there. And next slide, please. And so same for bridges and streets that I just spoke to, and for stormwater, there just isn't enough money being spent each year to keep that infrastructure from failing more frequently. And you know, 14 million a year for bridges, that's a big challenge, and 20 million a year for streets, also a big challenge. But as we've discussed several times in the past and in our infrastructure subcommittees, if we don't start ramping that up pretty quickly, we're going to start to see lots of implications from that. And the maintenance is just going to get more expensive. So we either invest it up front or we spend more maintaining it. Either way, we're going to have to spend a lot of money there. So resetting values and prioritizing investments is probably where we're going to make that happen. Public facilities, we've talked about. It's likely we just have too many facilities. We have a lot of parks. We have a lot of rec centers. We just have a lot of those things, and that subcommittee is discussing how we might be able to reduce that obligation over time and be smarter with those facilities and those parks, so that we can be great in those areas with less to maintain. And then traffic engineering. It's the same story. You know, we're spending 120,000. We need to spend a little over $1 million a year. I think we spend $50,000 a year on signs and striping, and that just isn't a lot of money. And we're not keeping up with expectations there. Next slide, please. So we've seen this. We've discussed this several times. Yeah, it's worth reiterating. Our pavement condition index, our PCI, we're averaging somewhere between 52 and 56. We're getting ready to update the street condition data. And at 7 million a year, it's just not keeping up. It's not going to keep up. And so next slide, you know, if we can't spend 20+ million a year in the very near future, we're going to see a lot of red, which this is projecting. And none of us want to see streets in that condition. So systemically, it's just going to be more potholes. And like I said earlier, it's going to be more to maintain. And the folks won't be happy. Next slide, please. Stormwater. We know that streets and stormwater are very closely linked. And without a good stormwater system, it's impossible to have a good street system in a large portion of our community. So, you know, same story. If we can't invest more each year with the new rate structure, next slide, our system will look like this. It'll be predominantly red. It'll be failing more frequently, and we will not be able to keep up. So always hate to be the bearer of this kind of news, but I think we're doing an excellent job of more recently of kind of looking at the brutal facts of the matter and really making some tough decisions. So I'm really excited about these subcommittees. And we should have some final sort of reports, I would say, in the first quarter of next year. We'll entertain any questions you have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank your staff too. They've just really gone out of their way to make themselves available for these infrastructure subcommittees we've all been working on, and there's plenty of work for each of you to do in your daily jobs. And so I think I speak for everybody when we truly mean it when we say thank you for the extra time. And I agree with you, Jeff. I think that it will pay dividends, especially as we move forward with decision making. What other comments or questions for our Public Works folks tonight? All right, thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
And of course, we'll stay in good touch with all of you. And then that brings us to the last item on this meeting agenda, and that is an update from Parks and Rec on the mowing services that are provided through the Parks and Rec division. We have Angel Obert, and I believe you have other staff here with you, Angel.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. And I'm gonna go ahead and let Assistant County Administrator Emmett Cross kind of do an introduction of the presentation, and we'll go from there. So thank you.
Thank you, Angel. Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. Tonight's presentation is going to be a recap of our 2021 mowing season and changes to our mowing program that are being implemented now, and some discussion changes that will be implemented in next year, 2022. I want you to know that Parks and Rec has been working closely with Mr. Jeff Fisher and Public Works on these mowing and weeding changes, since both departments are currently involved in the mowing process as well. So with that being said, I would like to introduce Miss Stephanie Bell. She's our new program coordinator in Parks and Rec. She's been doing an excellent job for us, and she will be presenting on this mowing topic tonight. Miss Bell, please.
Good evening. Give me just a moment to share my screen here. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. And let's see here. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you again for your time this evening. Again, my name is Stephanie Bell, Program Coordinator with the Parks and Recreation Department. And like Assistant County Administrator Cross mentioned, there's a team of us here this evening. Myself, Jack Webb, our Deputy Director of Parks, and Angel Obert, our Director of Parks, will be assisting me as well. I'd like to start before the presentation by taking this opportunity to thank the Commission for your time this evening, and simply just wanted to reiterate tonight that emphatically that we know how important the overall look and feel of the county is to our neighbors and the elected body, and that we understand that mowing specifically is a big topic of conversation and particularly important to folks who live next to city and county owned land. So with that said, we want to start this evening by kind of reiterating the why behind the work that we do, and start by saying that we share the Commission's goals when it comes to beautification of our city and county. And the way we see mowing operations on our team is that we are here to reduce blight, be a good neighbor, make our communities more beautiful, and also improve the sense of care and safety felt by our fellow residents. So as you hear our update this evening, we want you to know that the driving question behind our work is, what do we want our community to look like? And that these conversations inform the way that we're trying to innovate and serve the public. So let's get started. This evening, we're going to sort of give you a mowing at a glance presentation, sort of a snapshot of where we're at right now today as a service. So we'll be providing a refresher on what departments mow what areas, how we are handling calls for service, the end of season mowing stats for vacant lots. We're going to describe a few challenges that we faced as a department this season and let you in on what we're working on for the future. So like we said previously, we understand that this program is important to many residents and the elected body. So, we appreciate this opportunity to update you on our efforts.
Right. I forgot my mask. One of these days.
Melissa Sieben, I think that might be you to mute. Thank you.
So first, we'd like to start by essentially restating who mows what. So we provide this information because we want to make sure that questions are directed to the department who can provide the best information, specifically about things like status updates, timelines, et cetera, et cetera. So here you'll see that the primary mowing teams are the Parks and Rec Department, Public Works, and also the Kansas Department of Transportation, or KDOT. And we've included the code enforcement team on this slide because, as you know, they're tasked with citing private properties who are not mowing or taking care of their land. So starting on the left-hand side, we've got our Parks and Rec Department, and we handle the mowing and care of approximately 3,000 vacant lots. And I also wanted to quickly note that we use the term land bank lot and vacant lots somewhat interchangeably. So know that we're referring to those properties owned by the land bank. We also take care of 54 parks, some of the trails and paths within our counties, 27 sports fields, over 100 playgrounds. We have medians with grass, building and logistics sites, 31 water pollution control sites, or WPCs, and as 14 cemeteries as well. Our teammate, Public Works, they take care of the right-of-way of county-owned properties, site triangle issue areas, alleys of these county-owned properties, overgrowth hanging onto the roadways, guardrail areas, and certain maintenance hazard locations. They also care for certain right-of-way areas in agreement with KDOT, and the remainder of the highway right-of-way areas are mowed by KDOT themselves. So we understand that residents have had a lot of feedback regarding the highway mowing this year, so we'll be providing KDOT's public information line at the end of the presentation. And I'll just pause for a second in case there's any questions about who mows what. Okay. So here are some additional photos for the commission clarifying our areas. On the left, you'll see a common land bank lot that's mowed by the Parks Department. And on the right, we have Public Works taking care of a right-of-way area. This is an additional map outlining the Public Works areas, specifically the right-of-way. And here's a second glance at that list of areas. And we're showing you this slide just to simply demonstrate the variety of land mowed in our county and also the massive scope. So these right-of-ways span from the east of our county all the way to the west. And simply, we wish to point out that this is a big job.
Stephanie, it's Melissa Bynum. I thought I saw Commissioner Ramirez hand up.
Sure, I'll pause.
It was by accident, so please
Oh,
continue.
okay, thank you.
No problem. So on this next slide here, we wanted to provide you with a sample map for the land bank lot mowing that we would give to one of our contractors or our in-house crew working for the UG. This is an example of the Jersey Creek Park area. And these yellow parcel squares that you see on the map, these are vacant lots that we mow. Our teams rotate about 55 of these maps. And some of the maps are going to have 20 yellow parcels on them. And some of the maps are going to have as many as 300 yellow parcels on them. And this is in addition to our duties related to parks, trails, and fields, what have you. So again, our message here is just to say that this mowing service is big and that we cover a lot of ground, no pun intended. Okay, a quick note about medians. So we wanted to clarify which medians are cared for by the Parks Department. So on the left, you're going to see a landscaped median, or we might refer to them as medians with grass. And these are ones that are within our purview currently. And on the right-hand side is a hardscaped median. And these are not currently under our purview, but we are in talks about what it would take to absorb this responsibility into our program and incorporate it into our routine weed spraying that we do. So this would mean that we would hit these medians with weed killer several times throughout a season to prevent weeds growing through the cracks. Here we'd like to give our elected body a sense of what our staffing looks like to support our mowing efforts. And I'll pause here just to give you a moment to look at this. So currently, as it stands, we have 2 separate mowing tracks. On the left, you'll see the park staff, and these are the individuals who care for parks, fields, about 1/3 of our vacant lots, trails, etc. On the right, we have our 2 abatement teams, and these are the staff responsible for stepping in once codes has completed the citation process for privately owned properties. They mow, they address trash and other blight. And we also just wanted to quickly thank you for your help in expanding this team, which has allowed us to take care of more calls and provide faster service. Next, we'd like to provide insight into how mowing questions or complaints are handled once they're received by the Parks Department. So when we receive a complaint about a tall lot, the very first thing is we verify who owns it. So if it's us, if it's the UG, we'll send a supervisor out to verify its condition and make sure that we have a plan to resolve the issue. And we know that the commission receives a lot of calls about mowing. You know, residents see something that's not being cared for, they're fired up. And for our staff, it's really important that we start by confirming that it's actually our land to care for. If we discover that the lot is privately owned, we're going to refer it to codes and allow them the opportunity to go through the citation process. If the owner for some reason is unresponsive, it will ultimately come back to us and we will send out the abatement team to fix the issue. And then the property owner receives a bill for our time. We just want to note here that sometimes you might hear from a constituent that there's been no progress on a given area that they've complained about, when in reality, it's possible that we're just allowing codes the opportunity to go through their process before we can deploy our teams.
Stephanie, we have Commissioner Philbrook, please.
Hello.
Thank you, Stephanie, for all this work. I really love this layout of what you've done. It really does help even us commissioners just get a more succinct picture of what's going on. So, for example, there was an issue on Parallel, and this particular property, you really couldn't see the property because it's all wooded and all this kind of stuff. But next to it is a sidewalk, you know, which is then grown over by grass. And so people can't walk the sidewalk. Okay. And so we did end up going ahead, we meaning the UG ended up going ahead and mowing along that right of way for that sidewalk. But does that mean then that what happens really is we code the people that own it and then they don't respond? And so in this case, and so are we at the point now where we slap a bill on those people who are not responding to taking care of their the front property or the sidewalk property?
Yeah, so to answer your question, you know, if we verified that an area is a privately owned piece of land, home, what have you, it's owned by an individual, they're responsible for caring for their right of way. So if codes has deemed that they are unresponsive, they receive notice in the mail, or however codes has deemed notice should be filed. Once their timeline is up, they will tag us in and say, we've done all we can. They've not been compliant. Please send out your team. So we do bill for our time in that instance, and it's mailed to the property owner.
Okay, so sometime when you come back to the commission, can you give us or give them an idea of what that timeline really looks like in reality from beginning to end? You know what I'm saying? In other words, somebody calls in and complains, you find out it belongs to somebody else. how long, before actually codes could get back to you so you can take action. Because by then you have people trying to walk their dogs or themselves through, through the grass hanging over, and people are not happy about that. So that's one of the major complaints we've had since we changed how we were handling, our right-of-ways a few years back. And so I will admit that I was part of that mistake, but hey, I just want us not to forget. I want us to remember that we need to consider dealing with that in a timely manner. So thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make note of that comment and provide you with some clearer timelines during our next visit. All right, so next we'd like to kind of give you our mowing at a glance stats for 2021, and I'm starting in the top left-hand corner here. As it stands, our team is caring for approximately 2,900 vacant land bank lots, which is up slightly from 2020. We're up by about 100. Our average turnaround time between mowing rotations, specifically for the vacant lots, was between 3 and 4 weeks, and sometimes longer due to rain. And I do want to just take a moment to note that some of these other parts of town, parks, City Hall, we want to note that these areas have a faster turnaround time in terms of mowing. So this is just the average for our vacant lots. It costs us approximately $31 per mowing per lot to perform mowing for the vacant lots. And we have 2 teams that do this. We have an in-house crew that's employed by the UG, and our contractors who handle about 2/3 of the vacant lots. They completed 7, and actually, I'm sorry, the contractor line should say 9 rounds respectively. We are performing more mowing rotations than we did last year, which is great news. Our contractor is more experienced in their sophomore year. Our in-house crew is a 3-member team who oftentimes had to be rerouted this year to assist with other parks duties, mowing, caring of our fields and whatnot. So they were behind just slightly. And we also want to know that our crew can sometimes get pulled off to support the staff when folks are sick, maybe they're out on leave, on vacation, and what have you. So that will explain the discrepancy there. Our land bank lot list is growing. And so in 2021, 25 properties were removed from our care list thanks to land bank development, but roughly 120 were added because of the tax sale. So we're just wanting to note here that adds are outpacing the deletes when it comes to these land bank lots. And lastly, our Broadleaf spraying program was executed this year with high visibility locations receiving 4 chemical sprays and vacant lots receiving 2 sprays. And with the spraying program, we achieved what it was we set out to do, but we understand that there's room to grow this program. And in 2022, we are looking to add those hardscaped medians, hitting those hopefully 6 times annually. And we're also looking to include pre-emergent in our upcoming bid so that weed preventative is mixed in with that first round of spraying. Okay, moving on to challenges. This year, there were a few of them, namely trash, staffing issues, weather delays, and frankly, the sheer volume of lots in our care. So we'll start with trash. So trash is a big concern for our residents, and we know it's a big concern for the commission. And speaking candidly with you, it has been really bad this year. We see it, you see it. It's definitely been an issue for our teams because it slows them down. We actually held a contractor feedback meeting recently just to sort of touch base and see how things went for them this year. And trash was discussed at length, to be honest. And one of our future discussion points is going to be something like, how do we structure our budget and our contract to get the extra manpower needed to stay on top of this additional trash that we are experiencing in the community? We currently have trash pickup in our contract, it's included, but the feedback we're getting from our teams is that we need more money and more manpower to encounter and handle the prolific trash that they're seeing out in the field. So Ultimately, we want to make sure that we're hearing our vendors and being good partners to them. So we are exploring a variety of avenues to fix this problem and help remove any barriers to them getting their job done well. So just know that we are hearing the message about trash loud and clear and actively working on solutions for that problem. In terms of staffing, like we mentioned before, we had 0 applications for our summer and seasonal mowing positions. We know it's not hard for you to imagine because you're hearing about the same hiring issues in other departments. And frankly, these are similar problems that we're seeing throughout our country. These open positions are the same people who are providing that critical support role, things like weed whacking and picking up trash. And not having these filled has likely impacted our community's perception of the service. So, we really want to get these positions filled for 2022 as much as the residents do. Weather delays were also an issue at certain times in the season. You'll recall that in the month of May, we had 11 days of rain. So first, this is a safety concern before anything else for our staff, and safety is our #1 priority when deciding how to execute these mowing rounds. Wet ground can make it more dangerous to operate our equipment, and especially on that hillside mowing. Secondly, rain not only delays the mowing of flat areas, but you can imagine that it takes us longer to get to those hilly areas as well because of safety and also just issues operating the equipment. Parkwood Park, for example, it has that very large slope. And if we were to try and mow that when it's really wet, we could cause ruts in the ground and ultimately create new issues for our staff. And so sometimes we might have to split up a mowing job. So we might do the flat part on one day, and then we can return at a later date for the hillside areas. Our goal at the end of the day is to get this job done as quickly as possible without compromising safety or the integrity of our grounds. Lastly, we want to forecast an increase in the volume of vacant lots coming into our care and the funding required to care for them. Just the 120 new lots from 2021 are going to have a budget impact of approximately $29,000. And before the commission's October tax sale meeting, we were anticipating 3 more sales just before the 2022 mowing season. So that would have created a significant increase in work just before April. And we understand that these sales are postponed. We just want to speak candidly about the possibility of having a sizable amount of lots added as the tax sales continue on in the future. So lastly, we want to just hint at some future plans and considerations for the service. And we want to reiterate that this question that's driving our efforts is, what do we want our community to look like? Some of the other questions we're also asking ourselves are, how do we increase efficiency within our department? How do we improve the quality of the mowing services? And most importantly, how do we show the public that we care about their neighborhoods through these efforts? And these are the questions that help drive our planning for the following year. So a few items that we're working on. First, we mentioned staffing issues, and we are trying to address these vacancies by raising wages for summer and seasonal employees. We're hoping that a $2 an hour increase will make us more competitive than we've been as an employer in the past. The second is we're changing the way we are negotiating with our vendors, and we're utilizing an RFP process instead of a traditional bid system. We think this is going to allow us to improve our terms of our contract and our negotiations, and we are working closely with procurement on this process. Additionally, we are looking at unbundling some of our current contracts and making the scope of work more manageable. We're also hoping that that is going to open us up to a larger pool of mowing vendors, and like I said, make the work a bit more manageable. Third, we are working on a new digital tool that will enable us to better assign, track, and report on mowing activities, both to the public and the commission. And this is a solution that uses technology that we're already paying for, so that's really promising. And we're also looking at some basic but effective accountability tools, something as simple as before and after photo requirements for our contractors. And we're hoping that that's going to free up our supervisors a little bit and also help us flush out complaints if we are to receive them. And then lastly, our team is going to be beefing up communication efforts to better inform the public about the areas that we're caring for. And this includes things like some strategically timed social media content, website updates. And in short, we just really want to be better communicators and make ourselves more accessible to residents who need to reach out. And then the very last thing I'm going to mention, and I'll be passing the baton over to Mr. Cross here, is we're in the beginning stages of exploring what it might look like to put together a mowing division. And I'll hand the baton to you, Mr. Cross, and you can provide more insight into that.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was an excellent job, and I appreciate that. And commissioners, we are looking at making this whole mowing and weed eating process and the spraying program. We're looking to make it a lot easier for our citizens. So if they have a call in, we're looking at a dedicated one-line call in number. Now, we can't do that for KDOT, but we can be able to provide them the information and the contact number they get if they have questions or issues with KDOT's responsibilities. But we're also looking at joining employees and possibly creating this mowing division. That's going to be a lot of work, and it's going to be a little ways down the road, but it's something we're looking at for just efficiency and convenience. And it's like Stephanie said earlier in the presentation, what do we want our community to look like? And I think we're all on the same page of that. And now we have a plan to try to get there. So with that, we will take any questions you may have. Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Excellent presentation, most appreciated and extremely well done. Are there comments or questions from our committee members for this team? I'm not seeing any hands raised. Did we receive any comments from the public on the item, Madam Clerk?
No comments were received.
Thank you. I don't see any attendees raising their hand either. And if that is the case, it was an information only item. It was very much appreciated. It's the last item on our Public Works and Safety agenda, so we will be completed with this meeting. I thank you, Mr. Tom Groneman, as always, for being here with us. And I will adjourn this meeting and hand this to Commissioner Markley for Administration and Human Services.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Bynum, and hello, team. We're going to get through this next agenda. It is going to be a long evening for us. So we have quite a number of items here as well. Before I call this meeting to order, I want to announce that due to COVID-19, some committee members, staff, and public are attending remotely via Zoom as well as on site. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of the meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting the clerk's office by 5 p.m. the Thursday before the meeting. The public also will have an opportunity to provide brief comments either by telephone or via Zoom from the lobby of the municipal office building. I will now call this meeting of the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee to order. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Roll call, Philbrook,
Here.
Kane,
Here.
Ramirez,
Here.
Bynum,
Here.
Markley.
Here. We have one revision to tonight's agenda, the addition of item number 4, a resolution approving the agreement to release and assign the Unified Government's opioid litigation claims to the Kansas Attorney General. That will become item number 4. And our first order of business is the minutes from our July 26th and September 27th meetings. Is there a motion for approval of those two sets of
Motion
minutes?
for approval.
Second, Bynum.
There's a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Here.
Kane,
Here. Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Markley.
Aye. Those minutes are approved. Thank you. Our first item is the Bank On program, a resolution for an agreement between the UG and Credit and Home Ownership Empowerment Services to support the Bank On program, and Patrick Waters is here to present. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, Commissioner. And if we could please promote Justin Walker in the audience, if you see him, he'll be giving the presentation. But tonight we would like to talk with you about a potential partnership with an organization that is committed to helping people secure financial stability through access to banking services. Specifically, we like to talk about the Bank On program, whose goal is to ensure that everyone has access to a safe and affordable bank or credit union account. And I think I see Justin. So Justin, whenever you want, you can share your screen and give your
Fantastic.
presentation.
Thank you, Patrick. Yes, let me begin sharing my screen. Right. It says on my end, you can see it. I hope that you can as well.
We can.
Fantastic. Start here at the beginning. That's going to be much more helpful. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you so much for inviting me to share a little bit of your meeting with you. As Patrick mentioned, by way of quick introduction, my name is Justin Walker. I'm the Business Development Director for Credit and Home Ownership Empowerment Services, or CHESS Inc. We are a local nonprofit that operates on both sides of the state line. And at our core, we are HUD certified housing counselors, which means we help individuals get credit ready and successfully on a path to home ownership. Included under our umbrella are a number of other programs, including the Main Street Small Business Incubator, Porterhouse KC, the online repository for all things financial inclusion, Money Smart KC, and Bank On, which is most recently added to our program list, and what I'm here to share a little bit more about with you this evening. Bank On is a national initiative by the Cities for Financial Empowerment focused on helping un- and underbanked individuals get into safe, affordable bank accounts. Including Kansas City, there are roughly 90 coalitions across the country and over 100 certified products that are available through financial institutions. Why is banking an important item to be talking about now? Well, from the chart here, we can see that the individual savings rates have really round tripped during the pandemic, well off of their dramatic highs in April of last year. And we're also getting some signals that consumers are looking to shore up their short-term financial positions, with Google searches increasing for things like cash advances and payday loans, which are really expensive, predatory financial tools that are outside of the Main Street. We also know that looking at Kansas City as a whole, we're talking about the entire 12-county MSA, roughly 15% of our population is either unbanked or underbanked. And from the most recent survey from the FDIC, the top two reasons for this are that one, there's a distrust of the banks, and two, people don't believe that they have enough money to even bother with a bank account. So the national account standards have been set up in such a way that they really address many of these consumer concerns, including a very low opening balance, overdraft protections. Many of our financial partners also have some sort of mobile application that makes it easier to access your accounts. And most importantly, CFE does not certify any product that's not FDIC, OCC, the Fed, or NCUA bonded and insured and regulated. What we're looking to do is really take advantage of Kansas City's unique position of one city that shares a state line. Bridget Cobbins of UG has already been a tremendous advocate and partner in getting this coalition up and running, making introductions and helping with some of the structure for our coalition. And what you have before you this evening is really a simple MOU that will allow our two organizations to share resources and be able to push outreach into the community even deeper and further than we would be able to do individually by ourselves. One such area that we're really excited about diving into more is KCK's Municipal ID. I had the honor a couple of weeks ago of meeting with the officers who are implementing this program and have already relayed some exciting things back to our financial partners at the KBA, the Kansas Bankers Association, about this ID and helping individuals who are either in the mental health system or just getting out of the prison system or are homeless and getting off of the streets into safe certified bank accounts that are available already to many individuals in Wyandotte County. Two more quick slides and then I'll be done. I know that it's a long evening for you. Because our coalition is so new, we don't have a website just yet, but it is being built and we expect that to launch sometime around the Thanksgiving holiday. For the time being, Money Smart KC is up and running. And if there's any individuals that are interested in seeing what accounts are available right now, they can go to CFE's website, which is joinbankon.org. Click on the state of Kansas, and it will give you a list of all of the banks that are participating. With that, I wanted to say thank you again. And if there are any questions, I am happy to entertain those now.
Commissioner Kane?
Where else are you located at? What other municipalities are you working with? And you say you're not up and you're not online yet, or you're not set up yet?
The website is not yet set up, Commissioner, and I'll sorry, I'm taking the questions backwards, but we are working with CFE now to build that so that it mirrors the other coalition's websites across the country. So there's a very consistent look and feel and messaging that will be available to Kansas Cityans. Other municipalities.
When is that going to happen?
We're hoping right around the Thanksgiving holiday.
And what other municipality are you working with?
So we're currently in conversations with Kansas City, Missouri. We've also got explorations with Raytown, Lee Summit, and Belton.
How many do you have a contract with, or how many have approved this already?
We don't have any other contracts with municipalities at this point, sir.
How many other municipalities have you shared this with?
Shared the bank on?
Yeah.
So several without going through the entire list. Our targets really are local governments, other financial institutions, community development organizations, and other nonprofits that operate, that are really the practitioners in the KC Metro. Commissioner Kane, this is Kathleen Von Atchen. So this is a program that is sponsored by the Federal Reserve, and it's many municipalities across the entire United States have participated in this program. We're taking the approach of partnering with Ches Inc. because the two of us have some unique capabilities that combined will make our program more successful. So it's.
This is Patrick Waters, Legal Department. If I could just talk briefly about some of the details. What we're looking at is basically a 1-year commitment, to ensure that, we like the program, that it's working for us. 2 payments of $20,000 that would fund a half-time position at Chess that would work with unified government. Other than the 2 $20,000 payments, really the only commitment from the unified government is to provide meeting space and to help with promotional efforts. So again, we're looking at.
And those unified government payments are coming from ARPA funds, just so you know. That's.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bynum?
Thank you. Commissioner Bynum, I would make a motion to approve, please.
Are there any other questions from the commission or any comments from the public? Or clerk, if you see any hands, any of those things, if there are any other comments, now would be the time to speak up. All right,
No comments are received.
I will be looking then for a second to Commissioner Bynum's motion.
Second, Commissioner Ramirez, District 3.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Markley.
Aye, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Walker, for your presentation. And Patrick, as always, for your help as well. That takes us to item number 2 on our agenda, which is a request to conduct a public hearing to complete the closeout of the Neighborhood Stabilization Program 1. It is requested that this item be fast-tracked to the November 18th, 2021 full commission meeting. I will recognize, says Wilba Miller. I don't see, oh, there she is. Hello, Wilba, and welcome.
Hi. Thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. Again, thank you, Commissioner. This is a closeout of a 2008 or 2009 program, and we are asking that this be fast tracked to the November 18th to set a public hearing that evening and to get the mayor to sign some closeout agreements so that we can close this out. This is a requirement by the state of Kansas. So I'm going to do a real quick slideshow of what I intend to also show at Thursday night's meeting. The UG was awarded neighborhood stabilization program funds in the amount of $3.6 million from the state of Kansas Department of Commerce on April 15, 2009. It's called the NSP1 state program, and it was funded, excuse me, I'm going to go back up, under the Title III of the Housing and Economic Recovery Act of 2008, or HERA. The primary purpose of the program was to bail out mortgage lenders by providing grants to purchase vacant foreclosed homes, to rehab or redevelop and resell these homes in order to stabilize neighborhoods and to stem the decline of house values of neighboring homes. The appropriation was for the whole HERA Act was $3.95 billion. The state of Kansas received $20 million. They awarded 3.6 plus to the Wyandotte County. Please, this is significant in that this was for all of Wyandotte County. This wasn't just for the city of Kansas City, Kansas. The funds could be used for 5 uses: to acquire and rehab foreclosed vacant residential properties, a financing mechanism to purchase rehabbed and foreclosed homes, demolition of blighted foreclosed single-family houses, redevelopment of demolished foreclosed property, and a land bank of foreclosed property. The basic guidelines at that point in time were the funds had to be spent within 4 years or returned to the federal government. These guidelines were for the state of Kansas, not to the unified government. 18 months, they had to allocate funds, 9 months to commit funds. The program income is all returned to the state to be reallocated. And the benefit to persons and families was they relaxed our regular CDBG rules. It normally are up to 80% and went up to 120% of the area median income. At least 25% of our funds must benefit 50% of low and mod clients. And the primary focus was on housing within neighborhoods. We started a grant agreement in April 2009. We identified qualifying properties by priority areas. We did our environmentals. Then we started appraising and acquiring properties. We contracted with our CHODOs, who at the time were City Vision Ministries, Community Housing in Wyandotte County, and Mount Carmel Redevelopment Corporation. They did work write-ups. They rehabbed the property if necessary. They marketed and sold the property, and any proceeds went back to the Kansas Department of Commerce, and then they started again on another property. The financing mechanism was 25% to 40% down payment assistance in the form of a second mortgage.
This was based on their income to debt ratio. So if a house appraised for 100,000, using that mechanism, the buyer could purchase that house for $60,000 to $75,000. Okay, the FDIC was presented this map to us with all the little red dots, and then told us that we had to identify the properties ourselves because information about these properties was private, homes and private foreclosures. So we got this divided map, and as you can see, priority area 1, which is I-70 to the Missouri River, west to I-635. Priority area 2 was 635 west to I-435, I-70 to the river. Priority area 3 was state line east to I-435, I-70 south to county line, and then priority area 4 was I-435 to county line, Kansas River to the North County line. These were the criteria. The house had to be bank owned and meet foreclosure criteria. It had to be environmentally compliant for lead-based paint, asbestos, noise, sanitary system, etc. It had to be a desirable location and marketability of the house, adequate time frame for acquisition, rehab, and resale. And we were looking for amenities, basements, garages, and off-street parking. We addressed the energy efficiency of the house, and that when we were done, the property maintenance would be manageable by the homeowner. So if I go back to the map, you can see that the largest portion is in District 1 and 2, with 3 and 4 being less foreclosed properties. We did purchase 20 in priority area 1, 21 in 2, 10 in 3, and only 1 in priority area 4. Please remember that we had to go out and actually we took calls from neighborhood groups. We went out and looked for signs from banks and called banks. We called HUD. I mean, it was a project just trying to find properties to do. We were the first in the state of Kansas to spend our NSP funds. We were awarded an additional 3 allocations of $1 million each. We acquired 52 foreclosed units. 3 were demolished, with 2 being used as green space, and 1 was new construction that we used home funds with Habitat. And then of that, total of 49 properties were acquired, rehabbed, and resold for the program. It's important to note that 16 of those properties were put through a lease purchase because of the people's either their credit or their low amount of income, because again, 25% had to be set aside for anybody under 50% low and moderate income. And here you see that we met our 25%. We actually did 41% of our funds were spent on households under 50%, 53% at under 120, and only 6% of the cap of 7% for admin. So that was the end of the presentation. Again, we're asking for this to be fast-tracked, and I would put on a presentation, the same one you saw, and ask the mayor to sign the closeout agreements for NSP1. As a side note, we will be doing NSP3 soon also. So, and some of you may have been here when this first started, and I feel like this was successful, even though it was controversial.
Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you. Thank you, Wilba, for the presentation and walking us through this program. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. I think it predates my time on the commission, the allocation of the money and then the 4-year time period. So the money that was provided to community development was provided such that we could purchase these homes, which means we paid the banks for the homes. Is that correct?
We paid yes, the banks and or HUD, because we did buy some HUD foreclosures also. They were foreclosed properties.
So we paid whoever was holding the note.
Yes.
And then
we took
possession of the,
yeah. Yes,
and then handed them off to community housing organizations such that they could rehab, remodel, resell.
Yes.
And those housing organizations did that for what? What did they get out of the deal?
Well, they did get a developer fee. I'll be honest about that. Please understand that they had to do work write-ups. They had to market the properties. They had to maintain the properties while they were rehabbing them. At the time, I'll be honest and say that I had just probably started as the director. I was getting ready to retire and they made me stay. No. But I took over the application for this program. I believe the previous director was, not only was there that housing bubble, as we all know, or housing, whatever we want to call that, the Chodos were having difficulties. And I believe that part of his intent was to help them get some stability out of this too. We were not the only community that used the Chodos. I think a lot of other entitlement communities in the state of Kansas and other states use their Chodos to do this program.
Well, I think that's fair enough because as you're making your presentation, I'm thinking, well, who takes on a project like that without getting paid for it? So, I
Right.
mean, absolutely, it makes sense that these organizations would be paid something for the work that we basically asked them to do on our behalf, it sounds like. And we put new homeowners in homes. That's a good thing. It just strikes me odd that it was all basically part of the bank bailout, if I'm not mistaken. But I guess the good end of the story is, 49 new homeowners and hopefully still there enjoying their homes and being a important part of their neighborhoods. So what you need from us tonight is basically just an approval to close out all of your program reporting requirements. Is that right?
I need you to fast track and set a public hearing for the November 18th meeting and approve I think the commission that night will approve the mayor's signature,
I
but
see.
I need the mayor's signature on a couple of closeout documents. Commissioner, out of the 49 units that were out there have been some resales, 9 as a matter of fact, but most of those have been happening in the last year or so.
Okay, well, that's
And-
really nice to know. I appreciate that you know that.
Right.
Well, those are my questions. And I'm willing to make a motion. I see that Commissioner Kane
Go
has.
ahead.
I just would move that we fast track this item to the November 18 full commission meeting for purpose of conducting a public hearing to close out the Neighborhood Stabilization Program 1.
Commissioner Mike Kane, second with a comment.
Go ahead.
As always, Wilbur, you've done a good job. I remember when this came, I'm one of the old dogs that's still around. I remember when it came through, and you're right, Commissioner, it was part of the bailout for the banks and all that stuff that went wacko back then. It was important then. It's still important that we house as many people as possible in Wyandotte County. And thanks for your good work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. We do have a motion and a second. Roll call on the motion.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Markley.
Aye. All right, team, that takes us to item number 3, which is an update on the museum. And Amy Locke is here. Hopefully, there she is. She's here to present. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you for having me, commissioners. I appreciate your time this evening. And I am going to try to share my screen. I have just a few slides to show you this evening. Can you see that, everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, terrific. So tonight I just want to do a brief update on what has been happening at the museum. I have been in my position here since June of 2019, and it's been an interesting time to be in museums.
Clearly, the last year and a half has been very trying time for anybody trying to bring people in and connect with their community. But I think we've been doing a great job of it here in Wyandotte County. The first slide I have to share with you tonight is just kind of some overall goals that I feel are really important for a successful modern museum. And these are things we've all been working out at the museum to try to really engage the community. Number one is sharing unique stories. I feel like this is a fundamental part of being a strong county museum, is sharing those stories that the community connects to and are unique to that place. Number two goes hand in hand with number one. We can't tell the unique stories without community connections, and the community doesn't trust us if we're not telling personal stories. So I think a great example of this is the 1951 flood exhibit we did this year. As soon as we announced that that was the topic, we had people coming out of the woodwork, sharing objects they had, sharing stories. And throughout that entire exhibit, people continued to add and build that story that will ultimately be part of our permanent exhibits in the future. Number three, being a community resource, is really a lot of our research and archival materials, as well as answering questions and providing input for a lot of different community products. And then number four, staying adaptive and responsive. I think this is a big key right now. As the world keeps changing, we try to respond as quickly as we can. We've done some virtual things. We've responded to a wide variety of community requests that would like to partner with the museum. So I think these are all things we're working on, and we definitely have room to build on at our museum. The next slide I have here just kind of help me remember some of the things I wanted to touch on. So new exhibits, I think, is a big key. This is the bread and butter of what brings people to museums. And this year alone, we had the 1951 flood exhibit, which has probably been our greatest attended exhibit for the last probably 20 plus years. Unfortunately, we didn't have real strong record keeping of attendance for the last number of previous years. So we do have the numbers to compare from 2019 to today. We know we're doing significantly better than 2019. And a lot of the other museums I've talked to are not anywhere near their numbers for 2019. So we're really pleased with that. This is actually the last day of the Mexican American softball exhibit, which was well attended and brought a lot of three-generational families into the museum. And this week we're installing our next one that's called More Than Memories. And it's really focused on sharing a lot of those recent collections and donations we've gotten this last year. For 2022, we have three great exhibits coming up. We've got some major anniversaries in the county. So we're doing celebration of Rosedale in the spring, the original Kansas City, Kansas in the summer, and then Fairfax 100th anniversary will be the fall of next year. And along with that, we're also working on updating our modern history gallery. So that's another big part. Something else is virtual classroom programs. Clearly, this is a big component of the new virtual world, and we've partnered with Prep KC. So we're starting to get a lot more virtual classrooms in, and schools are discovering the museum existed, which we're hoping will really serve us into the future. Community presentations is a big part of what every museum strives to do. It's not something we've done quite as much in the last year, just because of the way the world is, but we're gearing up to be able to take more content out of the community when the world allows that. The next thing is our outreach displays. And this is something that's really been a community demand. So right now we have one on the flood, the Fairfax Industrial District, and Native Americans that are making their rounds through the libraries and community facilities. From the social media front, especially since the pandemic, we've really grown our social media audience. We have almost 7,000 Facebook followers that are really engaged and share a lot of great comments that allow us to tell greater stories. And then the last thing is really reaching out into the community and asking what do they want. So we have a number of surveys we've done, and we have something called Share Your Heritage, which is a link that anybody can leave their story about any topic related to Wyandotte County history. And we will either follow up with that or we will preserve that. And the last slide I have tonight really just touches on the foundation of what makes a museum function. And that's really our collections and research materials. So about 3 weeks before the pandemic began, we got a brand new database, and we were able to use a number of virtual volunteers as well as UG employees early on to help transfer records. So since that time, we've transferred over 36,000 records into the system. We've uploaded more than 4,000 images, and now we have in-person volunteers scanning naturalization records. We've also transcribed our cemetery indexes, and they're now available online and are very searchable. So overall, we've had more than 21 volunteers in 2021 alone that have provided more than 1,600 hours of service, allowing us to do these kinds of projects. The museum does have a small staff. We have 3 full-time employees and a Vista, so volunteers are really a key part of how we take care of a lot of our basic functions to be able to focus more time and effort on community program and growth. That's all I have for you this evening. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you very much. I think, at least in my memory, this is the first time that we have had a museum update to this committee. So I'm excited to have you here and to hear what's going on at the museum. It looks like Commissioner Bynum has a question as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy, for the presentation. I really appreciate it. I follow the museum and I'm in the building frequently. I am so appreciative of everything you and your staff did, especially during the pandemic. It really was quite remarkable to watch our locations that cater to visitors, whether they're local or from out of town, sort of reinvent themselves during that pandemic. And you certainly did that. If I'm not mistaken, you had an annual recognition this year from our Convention and Visitors Bureau, and you certainly deserved it. So I wanted to make sure folks knew that you had been actually given an award for all of the innovation you showed. So appreciate you and everything that's happening at the museum. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bynum. I appreciate you pointing that out, because yes, we were given an award from the Kansas City Visitor Bureau for outstanding, I believe it was inventiveness for the year. And for a pandemic year in the museum field, I really feel that we've held our own and we've really grown. And I think in the future, a lot more people are going to be aware that the museum existed and our foundation is set for future great things.
I don't see any other hands. All right. Well, again, thank you very much, Amy, for your presentation. We look forward to future updates to hear what you are up to. That item was for information only, so no vote required, which takes us to item number 4. Our last item is a resolution to execute. This is our added item, by the way, is a resolution to execute the agreement to release and assign the UG's opioid litigation claims to the Kansas Attorney General. James Bain is going to explain what that means.
Thank you, Commissioner Markley. Yeah, we'll go through the background of the opioid litigation. And I know we've talked about this a few times, but it'll be nice to refresh everybody's memory. We'll give an update on the settlements, as there has been some updates recently, and then we'll talk about the resolution tonight and what we're asking for. And so I'm going to share my screen. And you all can see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so as background, in 2018, the unified government joined hundreds of other municipalities, states, counties throughout the United States that entered litigation against the largest opioid manufacturers and distributors in the country. There were several allegations, but revolving around the fact that the pharmaceutical companies marketed the opioids as safe, not addictive, when in fact they knew the entire time that they were addictive and that the companies would make what turned out to be billions of dollars by addicting unsuspecting individuals on opioids. So recently there has been a couple settlements that you all probably heard about in the news. The first one was Purdue Pharma. Their settlement came through bankruptcy. And so the company itself was going through bankruptcy, but the owners and shareholders had significant cash. And so typically in a company going bankrupt, an individual's shareholders' wealth would be protected. A company's bankruptcy could not attack someone's personal bank accounts. Well, in this case, with the lawsuits, the shareholders of Purdue Pharma agreed to pay into the civil settlement $4.5 billion when they did not have to, but in exchange, the rest of their personal wealth was protected from the civil lawsuit. And so the unified government, along with our outside counsel, voted to approve the bankruptcy settlement to get a piece of this $4.5 billion. Otherwise, there was a chance there would have been $0 in settlement or in funds coming in from the shareholders of Purdue Pharma, because their personal bank accounts would have been protected from the bankruptcy. The second settlement came from the Big Three and Johnson & Johnson. $26 billion came into the plaintiff's fund from that settlement. The vote has not taken place yet on this settlement. And so the UG still holds some power, and we'll talk about that, to vote against the agreement and potentially place some of the state of Kansas's recovery, place some of it in jeopardy. And so we'll talk about some motivation that the AG's office has to come to an agreement with the unified government and the litigating counties. And so in May, when the legislature and AG's office kind of became aware that these settlements were going to happen, the legislature and governor signed into law House Bill 2079. And this is kind of the roadmap for the distribution of these funds that the legislature and attorney general were expecting. So under HB 2079, all of the settlement funds come to the state under the settlements and under this law. So the state would receive all of Kansas's share and the municipalities of Kansas's share. And then that money would be further split, 75% going to the KFA, which is Kansas Fights Addiction, and that's the state fund. And then 25% going to municipalities fight addiction, which is the municipalities fund that would be distributed to the cities and counties in Kansas. So in order to participate in the MFA, the cities that were litigating their own claims, like we are, must release all claims and assign our future claims to the Attorney General's office. So we have a choice. We can continue to pursue our own claims without joining the MFA, or we can join the MFA. In that case, we have to release our claims. The deadline to make this decision is January 1st, 2022 under HB 2079. So let's talk about the distribution and what being in the MFA means. So right now, under the HB 2079, the League of Kansas Municipalities and the Kansas Association of Counties are responsible for working with the Attorney General to create the distribution formula. And the distribution formula is expected to give litigating municipalities a benefit to release our claims. And this leads into kind of the incentive the AG's office has, because if we do not agree to the settlement, the dollars coming into the state of Kansas would be lower, because they would be losing our population. They would be losing our population voting for the settlement. And so the state of Kansas wants us at the table, wants us approving the settlement, because they don't want to lose our share. Our share would be pulled out, of course, because we would be pursuing our own claims, and the pharmaceutical companies are not going to pay the state of Kansas for us, and at the same time litigating with us. So there is motivation to get the unified government to agree to the settlement and agree to the distribution of the MFA. But right now there is no agreement. And that's kind of brings us into the resolution tonight. What we've proposed is a resolution that authorizes the administrator and chief counsel to sign documents necessary to release claims and join the MFA if that is desirable. It authorizes the administrator and chief counsel and our outside counsel to approve any changes to the release before it is signed. And so the reason it just comes down to this timing of January 1st. And I highlighted that in the prior slide, that we have to have this decision made by. And so just the timing of commission meetings and standing committee meetings, we need to bring this forward tonight, and then of course bring this to the full commission in December. And maybe we'll have more answers and a more specific distribution. But right now, that agreement of distribution does not exist. So what we're asking for is authorization to move forward if it becomes desirable for us to enter the MFA, and we still have this opportunity to litigate claims on our own without, potentially without the rest of the state or without the rest of the hundreds of other cities involved in the litigation. So I think that, yeah, that's my last slide. Of course, I can answer any questions anyone has.
Questions, commissioners? I know that was a lot of legal for the very last item on the very last agenda of the evening. So, but basically, the request is for us to authorize staff to make decisions on our behalf in this matter that has a time limitation going forward. Questions?
Commissioner Markley, this is Melissa Bynum. You are the attorney among us. And I have faith in our UG legal staff, and then in your ability to comprehend and make sure we understand. So I look to you if there is any further explanation you think we need to understand.
No, I mean, I really think that, as James said, this is really a timing issue. Ordinarily, this is something that would come back to us when there is the right information to make the best decision, and they'd say, pick this or that, and we would choose. In this case, we're not going to get a chance to say, pick this or that when we have all the information in hand, because there's a deadline that's external to the UG that they need to meet. So they're still waiting for some information to come in and to be able to make the decision that's in our best interests. We could try to make the decision tonight, but then we might accidentally make a bad decision not having the information in hand. Mr. Bain, go ahead.
If I could add on to the motivation piece of it. So along with us, we have Overland Park, Wichita. So we have the biggest cities in Kansas that are in this litigating category that the state wants us to agree with them. And so I think that that's important to note that we are working with the biggest cities in Kansas. And we know that does bring us some power to get this incentive that we think is coming, this incentive to agree. So that there is that to consider, to know that we do have large city partners in this with us.
So I'll maybe say it more bluntly. There's some leverage for us in not agreeing to an option tonight and in letting Mr. Bain and his team come to an option down the road. Because if we choose an option tonight, then the state no longer has incentive to incentivize us to be their friends. So we're trying to give our staff some leverage so they can negotiate us a better deal.
Commissioner Markley, based on what you just said, I'm unclear as to what a motion would read as.
So I think the motion needs to be to give, well, is there a specific person or just it says to execute an agreement in our language. So we need to make a motion to execute an agreement or to give staff the ability to execute an agreement to release and assign the opioid litigation claims. So
Is that a motion from the chair?
You know,
I
I believe there's a resolution that's been prepared for the committee.
There is in our.
James can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you'll be voting on approving that resolution.
So the motion can simply be to approve the resolution included in our packet.
I believe so. James, is that correct?
Yes, that's what we're asking, to have the resolution in the packet approved.
Is the chair going to make a motion?
I can make that motion to approve the resolution included in our agenda packet.
Commissioner Mike Kane, second.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Then we will have roll call on that motion in second.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Markley.
Aye. Thank you very much. That was confusing stuff for the end of our evening, but we powered through. And that concludes our meeting for tonight, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.